bureaucratic red tape. We'd put our economy on the right track and lower energy costs. Securing American energy independence was a monumental achievement on the last Trump administration. Unfortunately, that achievement was squandered by the Biden-Harris administration and congressional Democrats over the last 4 years. Securing American energy independence is the cornerstone of incoming President Trump and the House Republicans' agenda. Geothermal is a renewable source that can and should represent a vital part of the broader domestic energy portfolio. Unfortunately, bureaucratic hurdles remain to further realize the potential of this domestic power source. All too often, American potential is lost because of regulation for regulation's sake. We have a lot of work to do to break down the vast matrix of red tape, to break down the paperwork and the unaccountable decision makers, and of course the regulatory costs imposed over the last 4 years. But today, a first step, a small first step, one of many to again release America's energy potential. So I now would yield to our ranking member, Mr. McGovern, or his designee, the gentlelady from Pennsylvania, for any comments she wishes to make.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we have two bills before us today. H.R. 1449, the Committing Leases for Energy Access Now Act, which places harsh deadlines on geothermal energy permitting that would restrict public input and rush environmental review. I'm really encouraged that we now have bipartisan interest in accelerating the development of geothermal energy in the U.S., and I sincerely hope that this bipartisanship can be carried through to develop reforms to expedite the development and deployment of geothermal and other clean energy sources. However, like many of the so-called reforms that have been advanced by House Republicans over the past month, this bill offers only a blunt remedy to what is a very challenging and technical problem. Putting a 30-day limit on project reviews doesn't really solve any of the core issues with the geothermal permitting process. These applications are lengthy and complicated and therefore require review proportionate to their complexity. There are many proposed solutions to make this process easier for both developers and the Department of the Interior, but just creating an arbitrary review deadline without addressing any of the other problems is not a real solution. Like with the FAFSA bill last week and countless bills we've seen put forward by our Republican colleagues this Congress, we see the same strategy. Instead of supporting legislation to make federal agencies work better or faster or be more accountable to the people they're designed to serve, House Republicans use the government's failings as an excuse to further undermine the government's capacity to do its job. This political strategy and the bills that have followed are both unwise and disingenuous and only worsen the problems they claim to solve. We're also going to consider the failed suspension bill from last week, H.R. 9495, the Stop Terror Financing and Tax Penalties on American Hostages Act. Now, this bill does two things. First, it would stop the IRS from imposing fines and penalties on American hostages for late tax payments while they're being held in captivity. We should all support that. But that piece of this bill already passed the Senate, and that's what we should be voting on today, the Senate bill. In fact, a House member already introduced the bill to do it, H.R. 7791, the Stop Penalties on American Hostages Act. Why not bring that to the floor for a vote and send it to the president's desk right away? Instead, Republicans are trying to generate controversy where there is none by tacking on another piece of another bill, which would grant the President of the United States the authority to strip a nonprofit of its tax-exempt status if the government finds that the nonprofit is a, quote, terror-supporting organization. Treasury can do this without presenting any evidence, without any hearing, and without any meaningful right of appeal. Now, we all oppose terrorism, and organizations that actually materially support terrorism should not enjoy tax-exempt status, but that's not what this bill is about. This bill gives the president, any president, a broad authority to target and silence civil society groups that a president doesn't agree with. And then those groups have no meaningful way to challenge that determination. It's really rich to see Republicans line up behind this bill when not that long ago, they were all up in arms over allegations, which were later proven to be false, that the Obama administration's IRS had allegedly targeted conservative nonprofits. So this is just taking it to another level. Regardless of one's party affiliation, we should all be wary of giving any president an authority like the one that is proposed in this bill. It's an authority ripe for abuse. The definitions are too vague and its due process is lacking. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to introduce into the record this letter from over 150 civil society organizations, including organizations like the American Friends Service Center, the American Library Association, the League of Conservation Voters, the Methodist Church. These 150 civil society organizations have sent this letter to the House of Representatives urging opposition to H.R. 9495.
That objection so ordered.
Okay. With that, I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Chair thanks the gentlelady. Without objection, any prepared statements that our witnesses may have will be included in the record. I'd like to welcome our first panel, Chairman Westerman from the Committee on Natural Resources, to the witness table. Chairman Westerman, we welcome your testimony.
Thank you, Chairman Burgess, and to the committee for the opportunity to testify today in support of H.R. 1449, the Committing Leases for Energy Access Now Act, or the CLEAN Act. The Department of Energy predicts that geothermal energy could provide over 90 gigawatts of electricity by 2025. Because most of our country's geothermal resources are located in the West, reaching this goal depends on a pro-energy federal regulatory structure. Suffice to say, the status quo is in dire need of reform. The only way we can meet this goal is to increase the rate of geothermal leasing and permitting. As was mentioned in the chairman's opening remarks, geothermal energy is clean, and also from the minority side, it is something that we have bipartisan agreement on. But if we want to utilize and tap into this massive amount of geothermal energy to meet rising energy demands, rising electricity demands, then we have to speed up the permitting. H.R. 1449 that was introduced by my friend Representative Fulcher from Idaho would increase the frequency of geothermal lease sales and streamline the process for geothermal drilling permits. Over the last 20 years, as the shale revolution has boomed across the country and the world, America has led cutting-edge innovation in subsurface technologies that are directly transferable into the geothermal industry. Geothermal energy has serious potential for growth in this country, but the best reservoirs are in the West on federal lands where federal bureaucracy gets in the way. We must do all we can to ensure that bureaucratic red tape does not hamper this resource moving forward. California is a prime example of a Western state with substantial geothermal potential. Still, despite language in the statute requiring lease sales every other year, there hasn't been a geothermal lease sale in California since 2016. H.R. 1449 would fix this. The Secretary would be required to hold yearly lease sales and would be forced to hold replacement sales if one is missed. H.R. 1449 would also require the Secretary to respond to geothermal drilling permits within 30 days of receipt to let the applicant know whether their application is complete. If it is deemed incomplete, the Secretary must explain what is missing from the application. If it is complete, the Secretary has 30 days to approve the permit. Some may argue that these deadlines are too fast and don't allow adequate time for agencies to complete reviews under the National Environmental Policy Act and other environmental laws. However, the bill does not waive the agency's responsibilities under these laws. We all know from experience that agencies will not issue permits until they meet the necessary legal requirements. It is imperative that America wins the race to energy dominance, as adversaries like China and Russia do not have our best interest in mind. Geothermal stands to play a pivotal role in our domestic energy policy, but we must ensure the leasing and permitting processes are as efficient as possible. H.R. 1449 had a hearing and a markup in the Committee on Natural Resources, and it passed unanimously by voice vote. I urge the Rules Committee to report out an appropriate rule to allow for the bill's consideration in the House, and I urge my colleagues to support the legislation. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Westerman, and I just want to wish you a happy birthday. So everybody's got to be really, there. You got to be really nice to him now. So.
I mean, what more could you ask for than to be in
Rules
front of the Rules
Committee.
Committee with good legislation on your birthday?
There you go.
My dream come true.
But I don't have any questions at this time, Ms. Scanlon.
As I understand it, 1449 would require Department of Interior to do these geothermal lease sales every year instead of every other year, so twice as frequently as now. Is that right?
That's right.
And also, there would be a 30-day deadline for notifying people who are interested in these leases of their applications, whether they're complete or have any defects.
That's correct.
Does the bill provide any additional resources to the Department of Interior to meet these new requirements?
No, it's an authorization bill, so that would be up to appropriators if they wanted to
Okay.
put more funding for it.
Thank you. That's all I have, and happy birthday.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for appearing before us today, Chairman Westerman. And again, happy birthday. And now go have some fun.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else seeking to testify on HR 1449? Without objection, this closes the hearing portion of our meeting. And without objection, the committee stands in recess until 5:15. We are in recess.
All right.
I'm leaving my stuff there. Just slide it underneath your chair.
Hello. Okay.
Call the committee back to order. The chair will be in receipt of a motion from the gentlewoman from Minnesota, Ms. Fishbach.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the committee grant H.R. 1449, the Committing Leases for Energy Access Now Act, a structured rule. The rule waives all points of order against consideration of the bill. The rule provides 1 hour of general debate equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on Natural Resources or their respective designees. The rule provides that the bill shall be considered as read. The rule waives all points of order against provisions in the bill. The rule makes in order only those amendments printed in the Rules Committee report. Each amendment may be offered only in the order printed in the report, may be offered only by a member designated in the report, shall be considered as read, shall be debatable for the time specified in the report, equally divided and controlled by the proponent and an opponent, shall not be subject to an amendment, and shall not be subject to a demand for division of the question. All points of order against the amendments printed in the report are waived. The rule provides 1 motion to recommit. The rule further provides for consideration of H.R. 9495, the Stop Terror Financing and Tax Penalties on American Hostages Act, under a closed rule. The rule waives all points of order against consideration of the bill. The rule provides that the amendment, excuse me, in the nature of a substitute recommended by the Committee on Ways and Means, now printed in the bill, shall be considered as adopted, and the bill as amended shall be considered as read. The rule waives all points of order against the provisions in the bill as amended. The rule provides 1 hour of debate, excuse me, of general debate equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on Ways and Means or their respective designee. Finally, the rule provides 1 motion to recommit.
Thank you very much. You've now heard the motion. Is there any discussion or amendment to the rule?
Yeah, just briefly, Mr. Chairman, I want to point out, I'm going to opposing this rule. Comes as no surprise to anybody, but I do want to point out that H.R. 9495 is the 112th closed rule in this Congress, and you've kind of broken your record again. I don't know what the next session is going to bring, but I mean, I think that we need to reassess what the role of the House of Representatives is in terms of debating some of this legislation. And on H.R. 9495 in particular, many of us are deeply concerned that this will be misused by the incoming president, who has labeled mainstream organizations in this country as terrorist organizations. And he will be able to use this, if it ever became law, to deny these organizations their tax-exempt status, to try to punish them, to try to silence them, without any due process, without any hearing, without any nothing. And I want the record to reflect that this is a dangerous pathway that this committee is paving the way for us to go down. And so with that, I will yield back my time.
Chair, thanks, the gentleman. Gentleman yields back. Further discussion or amendment? Hearing no requests for further amendments, the question is on the motion from the gentleman from Minnesota. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no.
No.
In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The motion is agreed to.
As for a roll call.
Roll call has been requested. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Reschenthaler. Mr. Reschenthaler, aye. Mrs. Fishbach. Mrs. Fishbach, aye. Mr. Massey. Mr. Massey, aye. Mr. Norman. Mr. Norman, aye. Mr. Roy. Mr. Roy, aye. Mrs. Houchin. Mrs. Houchin, aye. Mr. Langworthy. Mr. Langworthy, aye. Mr. Scott. Mr. Scott, aye. Mr. McGovern.
No.
Mr. McGovern, no. Ms. Scanlon. Ms. Scanlon, no. Mr. Neguse. Ms. Leisure Fernandez. Ms. Leisure Fernandez, no. Mr. Chairman.
Chair votes aye.
Mr. Chairman, aye.
Clerk will report.
9 yeas, 3 nays.
And the ayes have it. The motion for report is agreed to. Accordingly, the gentlewoman from Minnesota will manage for the majority.
And I will do it for the minority. Yeah.
I want to thank the gentleman for his forbearance today. I think we did good work, and without objection, the committee is
I must have
adjourned.
missed that.